Isaiah Nolan didn't have time for distractions, especially not ones that came with caramel drizzle and oat milk. He was storming out of his chauffeur-driven black SUV, a phone pressed to one ear and a triple-shot latte in his other hand, barking something to his assistant about moving a board meeting when disaster struck. Or rather, he struck her. The coffee cup exploded, splattering hot liquid across a white blouse and sending both of them stumbling back. "Oh my God," the woman gasped, looking down at the mess on her shirt. "Are you kidding me?" Isaiah blinked, stunned for once completely speechless. Not because of the coffee. Not because she looked like she was about to throw the entire cup right back at him. But because her eyes, hazel, wide, and furious, were locked on his like she didn't care who he was. Which was rare. Everyone in Manhattan knew Isaiah Nolan, the billionaire tech investor who broke companies and headlines like they were glass. He started, then looked at her shirt, which was completely ruined. "Great, just great, I'm sorry." You weren't looking," she snapped, reaching into her bag and pulling out a napkin. "You have two hands, one for coffee, one for your phone, pick a struggle." "I'll pay for your dry cleaning," he said automatically, already pulling out his wallet. "I'm not interested in your money." That hit him like a slap. She turned to leave, and before he could stop himself, Isaiah said, "Wait, at least let me buy you another coffee." She shot him a look over her shoulder. "So you can throw that one on me too?" "No," he said. "So I can apologize properly without scalding you." She hesitated, just long enough for him to see it wasn't about the coffee, it was about pride. And he respected that. Finally, she sighed. "Fine, one coffee and you're paying." "But I pick the place. Deal." He nodded, his gaze flicking to her shirt again. "And maybe a blouse." She stepped closer, eyes narrowed. "Push your luck again and I'll pour the next one in your lap." He blinked and then, for the first time in weeks, laughed. The small cafe she chose was nothing like the places Isaiah usually went. It had mismatched chairs, indie music playing softly, and a chalkboard menu with hand-drawn hearts next to the pastries. "Seriously?" he muttered. "Don't worry," she said, leading him to a two-top near the window. "No bodyguards or overpriced truffle lattes here. I'm not used to being bossed around," he said, pulling out her chair. "Good, you need the practice." She sat, then glanced at him. "You don't even know my name, do you?" He paused, then tilted his head. "No." "But I'd like to." She studied him for a second, then said, "Hayden Porter." "Isaiah Nolan," he said, fully expecting recognition, but she just blinked. "Cool, cool. You really don't know who I am?" he asked. "I mean, you're a guy who spilled coffee on me and thinks buying a new shirt fixes it." He stared at her, and for a second he forgot everything else. The meetings. The deals. The fact that his driver was probably circling the block. Hayden Porter didn't care about his money or his last name. And that intrigued him more than it should have. "Okay," she said after he paid for both their drinks. "I've got to get back. Some of us work for a living." He raised a brow. "You think I don't?" "I think you probably own the building I work in," she said, standing. "And I think you're used to people letting you off the hook." He stood too, watching her tuck a curl behind her ear. "And you're not." "Nope." She stepped away, then added, "But thanks for the coffee, billionaire." He stiffened. "You knew?" "I saw your face on a financial magazine at the counter." He laughed again. "You're something else, Hayden," she grinned. "So I've been told." Then she walked out, leaving him staring after her, oddly dazed. Over the next few days, Isaiah couldn't stop thinking about her. It wasn't just that she was pretty, though she was, in this cool, effortless way. It was how she talked to him like he wasn't worth a cent more than the coffee he spilled. It was how she looked at him like she saw through the suits, the headlines, the money. He hated it. And he couldn't get enough of it, so he did something he never did. He found out where she worked. It wasn't exactly hard. She'd mentioned working in marketing, and he owned half the buildings on that street. A few calls, a few favors, and boom, Hayden Porter, junior marketing exec at a boutique firm on 5th. He didn't show up the next day. That would be too much. He waited 3 days. Then walked into her office lobby with 2 lattes, 1 caramel oat milk, 1 black. She looked up from her desk and blinked. Oh no. Thought I'd try again, he said, holding out the coffee. I didn't spill it this time. She stood slowly, arms crossed, but there was a smile tugging at her lips. You're persistent. I'm intrigued. Why? Because you're the first person who's made me feel like a person in a long time. That made her pause. He stepped closer. Let me take you to dinner. She tilted her head. Like a date. Yes, a real one, no coffee. No accidents? She looked at him for a long time, then she said, fine, but if you spill anything on me again, I'm billing you, he smiled. Deal. And just like that, Isaiah Nolan, the man who didn't date, didn't flinch, didn't care, felt something crack inside, and it terrified him. Hayden arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes early, ignoring the way her reflection in the glass doors made her hesitate. She hadn't let a man take her to dinner in nearly a year, let alone one who had his name engraved on the top floor of half the city's skyline. But she walked in anyway, because something about him, about the way he'd looked at her like she wasn't just another passing face, had unsettled her in a way she couldn't explain. The host greeted her by name, which was already disorienting. This way, Miss Porter. She followed him through the dining room, catching the flicker of candlelight along wine glasses and the faint, melodic hum of live piano. The place was elegant without screaming for attention, intimate tables, velvet banquettes, and a view of the city that opened like a painting through floor-to-ceiling windows. Isaiah was already seated, jacket draped on the back of his chair, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He stood the moment he saw her. You're early, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. I didn't want to risk being late. She lifted a brow. You don't strike me as the nervous type. I'm not, he said. You're just different. Before she could respond, a waiter appeared with a bottle of wine she hadn't ordered. Isaiah nodded at the label and the cork was pulled without a word. Please tell me that's not a $1,000 bottle, she said. It's not, he replied, pouring her glass. It's $1,500. She stared at him and then, despite herself, laughed. You're unbelievable. I've been told worse. The wine was rich and smooth, but she sipped cautiously. So, are we supposed to pretend this isn't strange? I'd rather not pretend anything with you. She leaned back. That's bold, he met her eyes. That's honest, she set her glass down. Why me? Isaiah hesitated, then said, because I don't know what to expect from you, and I like that more than I should. She blinked, surprised by the admission. That sounds like something you'd regret. I've made decisions based on logic for most of my life. This doesn't feel logical, but it feels good. The waiter returned with menus, but Hayden didn't open hers right away. You always eat here. No. I actually don't go out much. Too busy running empires. Too tired of people pretending around me. She tilted her head. And what makes you think I'm not pretending? Because you didn't even blink when I said the price of the wine. You're not impressed. You're curious and maybe a little annoyed. She smiled despite herself. Fine. You're not wrong. They ordered. He chose a seafood risotto. She picked the roasted duck, and conversation flowed more easily than she'd expected. They didn't talk about his companies or his wealth. Instead, he told her about spending 2 years in Zurich when he was 22, learning failure the hard way. She told him about growing up in a cramped apartment in Queens, where ambition wasn't encouraged, just survival. My mom worked double shifts at a bakery, she said. Still came home and helped me with science projects she didn't understand. Isaiah's expression softened. She must be proud. She passed 6 years ago. He didn't offer condolences, just nodded like he understood silence could say more than words. Do you have anyone? She asked. A pause. No, not anymore. She didn't press, didn't need to. The waiter cleared their plates and brought a dessert cart. Isaiah ordered a dark chocolate torte only because it's the only thing I know how to pronounce in French, he joked, and she surprised him by choosing nothing. I'm not really a dessert person, she said. You're full of surprises. That's kind of the point. As they stepped out of the restaurant an hour later, the night was cold and crisp, the city glittering beneath a sky that had turned velvet black. A sleek black car pulled up beside them. Isaiah opened the door. I'll walk, she said quickly. I'll have the driver follow you. I'm not a damsel, Isaiah. He hesitated, then offered. Then let me walk with you. She glanced at him. You sure you can survive 5 blocks on foot? I've survived worse. They walked in silence for a stretch, the rhythm of their steps sinking without effort. He didn't try to touch her, didn't push, just matched her pace, hands in his pockets, gaze forward. You're not who I expected, she admitted. Neither are you. She stopped outside a brownstone that had seen better days but stood proud anyway. This is me. He looked up at the building, then back at her. Will you let me see you again? That depends. On whether you keep trying to impress me. He stepped closer, not touching but close enough that she could feel the warmth from his skin. What if I stop trying and just be myself? Then maybe, she said, you'll get another coffee. One you don't wear, he chuckled. I'll take the risk. She didn't say goodbye, just turned and went inside, her expression unreadable. As the door closed behind her, Isaiah lingered on the sidewalk. He'd taken meetings that had shifted markets, signed deals that built empires. But nothing had ever left him this uncertain, and nothing had ever felt more like the beginning of something real. Isaiah didn't believe in waiting for feelings to settle. The moment he realized he wanted Hayden in his life, truly wanted her, he acted. That's how he'd built everything. With precision, with speed, with certainty. But Hayden Porter didn't follow the rules of business. She didn't call when expected. She didn't respond with flattery or interest just because he showed up. And when she did see him, it was always on her terms, never in the places he was used to. So when she agreed to meet him at an art exhibit on the Upper East Side, he didn't bring a car. He walked. She was already inside when he arrived, standing in front of a massive abstract canvas, arms folded and expression unreadable. That one makes me feel like I'm drowning in a thunderstorm, she said without turning. Isaiah stepped beside her. I thought it looked like anger. Maybe it's both. He glanced at her. Her hair was pulled back in a way that framed her jaw, and she wore a navy coat with a frayed button. He didn't comment on it. He was learning. I didn't expect you to say yes, he said. I almost didn't, she replied. But I had a feeling you'd come either way. He nodded. You're not wrong. She moved to the next canvas without waiting for him to follow. This one's worse, she said. It's worth $500,000. That makes it worse. Isaiah laughed under his breath. You're not impressed by price tags. I'm impressed by honesty and effort. He watched her fingers trace the air near the painting, never touching it. You think I haven't made an effort. I think you're used to getting what you want quickly. And you're not something I can buy. She turned to him then, eyes steady. No, I'm not. A man in a tuxedo passed them, nodding at Isaiah with faint recognition. Isaiah returned the gesture, but Hayden caught it. You're always being watched, she said. I'm used to it. That doesn't make it normal. They moved through the gallery in silence for a few minutes, their footsteps soft against polished floors. The farther they went, the fewer people filled the space, until they reached a quiet corner with a photograph that stopped them both. It was black and white, an elderly woman sitting by a window, her hands curled around a teacup, eyes vacant. She looks like she's waiting for someone who won't come, Hayden said. Isaiah didn't speak. His gaze was locked on the photo, his jaw tight. Hayden looked at him. You know that look, he exhaled slowly. I saw it on my mother's face the last time I visited her. She died a month later. Alone, Hayden's voice softened. You didn't get there in time. I thought I had more of it. Time, I mean. There's always another meeting, another crisis. He didn't expect her to reach for his hand, but she did, just for a second. Regrets a heavy suitcase to carry, she said. But it doesn't have to come with you everywhere. He nodded, not trusting his voice. A staff member approached then, whispering something about a private room that had just opened. Isaiah waved him off. I'd rather stay here, he said. Hayden began walking again, slower this time. You ever think about what you'd be doing if you weren't rich? I'd probably still be chasing something. Even if it wasn't money, I think I chase control more than anything. She turned to face him. And how's that working out for you? He gave a dry laugh. Not great. They stepped outside an hour later, the wind cooler now, brushing her cheek with a bite. I'll walk you, he offered. She hesitated. Only if we stop for something hot. There's a place near here, quiet, no valet, no press. She nodded once. The cafe was tucked between a bookstore and a record shop, barely wide enough for 4 tables. They sat at the one nearest the window. No one looked twice at them. The barista didn't recognize Isaiah. For once, he wasn't Mr. Nolan. He was just a man ordering hot cocoa and a cinnamon bun. "Do you ever miss anonymity?" Hayden asked. "Every day." "Then why live in the spotlight? I didn't choose it at first, but once you're there, stepping away looks like weakness, and weakness gets eaten." She stirred her drink. "That sounds exhausting." "It is." She leaned in slightly. "Then stop performing." He met her eyes. "What if I don't know how? Then learn. With me." He didn't respond right away, but something in his expression shifted. "You're not afraid of me," he said. "I'm afraid of wasting time on someone who's still hiding behind a version of himself he built to survive." The silence between them stretched, but it wasn't uncomfortable. "I'm trying," he said quietly. "I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I'm trying." She reached for his fingers, lacing hers through his. "That's all I need to hear." Outside, the streetlights flickered on. Inside, the hum of quiet conversation surrounded them like a blanket. Isaiah didn't pull away. For once, he didn't calculate the next move or worry about perception. He just sat there, hand in hers, and let himself feel it. Whatever this was, it was real. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't want to run from it. Hayden stood on the rooftop terrace, wind tugging at her sleeves, her eyes sweeping over the Manhattan skyline stretched like a sea of stars below. The night was crisp, painted in deep navy and gold, and the city pulsed with its usual untamed rhythm. But up here, it was silent. Isaiah watched her from the doorway, one hand still on the polished brass handle. She hadn't said a word since he led her up from the elevator, and she hadn't needed to. The weight in her gaze said everything she knew this moment wasn't casual. "There's one more part of me I haven't shown you," he said, stepping forward slowly. She turned, arms crossed but not guarded. "You're not exactly a mystery anymore, Isaiah." He walked to the edge beside her, the breeze tugging at his shirt. "This building, it was the first thing I ever bought outright, before the company took off, before the investors. I renovated every floor with my own hands. The roof was the last thing I finished." Hayden glanced over at him. "You built this." "I had too much anger and too much time. I needed something to anchor me, so I poured everything into concrete and steel." She looked back at the view. "It's beautiful." "It was meant to be private, a place where no one could reach me." She was quiet for a beat. "Then why bring me here?" Isaiah's voice lowered. "Because I want you to know what's underneath the noise, the person I am without all the chaos." Hayden studied his face, and for the first time, he didn't look like the man who commanded boardrooms or silenced rooms with his presence. He looked like someone who had finally stopped running. "I don't need the view," she said softly. "I just need to know you're not going to disappear when things get difficult." He stepped closer, just enough to touch her hand, but he waited. "I won't," he said. "I've spent years walking away from people the second they got too close. But I can't do that with you." Her fingers closed around his. "Then don't." He brought her hand to his chest, right over the steady rhythm of his heart. "I don't say things I don't mean, and I've never said this before, but I'm in love with you, Hayden." She stared at him, breath catching. "You're not just saying that because no one else has told you no before." He gave a single shake of his head. "I'm saying it because I finally know what it means to feel everything at once: fear, hope, need, and not run from it." Hayden didn't speak right away. She looked at the city again, then back at him, eyes glassy, voice thick. "You make it really hard to keep pretending I'm not in love with you too." He pulled her into his arms without hesitation, wrapping her in the warmth of everything he hadn't dared to give anyone else. She held onto him with the same fierceness, her head against his collarbone, her breath threading with his. "I fought this," she whispered, "every step of the way." "I know," he murmured into her hair. "And I'm glad you lost." She laughed, sudden and bright, and it cracked something wide open between them. Isaiah pulled back just enough to meet her gaze. "Come with me tomorrow." "Where?" "My plane leaves at sunrise. I have meetings in Paris, but I don't want to go without you." She blinked. "Paris?" I'll cancel everything if you say no, she searched his face. You would really do that? I've canceled billion-dollar deals for less important things. You're not a deal, Hayden. You're the life I didn't know I wanted. She exhaled slowly. Then I guess I need to pack. He smiled, not the measured, practiced one he gave cameras, but something raw and real. Do you still think I'm trying to impress you? He asked. Yes, she said, stepping back so she could look him over. But this time. It worked. The next morning, the sun hadn't yet crested the skyline when a sleek black car waited outside Hayden's apartment. She climbed in with a single bag and a heart full of every emotion she'd spent years trying to keep at bay. Isaiah was already at the jet, standing at the bottom of the stairs, a soft wool coat draped over one arm, his other hand outstretched toward her. She didn't say anything as she stepped onto the tarmac. She just took his hand. Inside, the cabin was warm and quiet, the city fading behind them. Hayden curled into the leather seat beside him, her fingers still wrapped around his. Neither of them let go. Later, somewhere above the Atlantic, Isaiah turned to her. I want to build something that doesn't vanish when the headlines change, something that matters. Hayden raised an eyebrow. Are you talking about us or another skyscraper? He leaned close, brushing her cheek with the back of his fingers. Us, he said. I want forever with you. Hayden didn't flinch, didn't look away. Then make it count. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, narrow box. Not velvet, not showy, simple, honest. I don't need time to know what this is, he said. I just need you to say yes. She opened it slowly. Inside was a ring unlike any she'd ever seen, a gold band carved with a pattern that matched the terrace railing from his rooftop. It wasn't about cost. It was about meaning. She looked up at him, heart thundering. Yes, she said, but only on one condition. Name it. Don't ever shut down on me again. If you're scared, say it. If you're lost, tell me. I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to fight with you. He reached for her hand, sliding the ring on her finger with a reverence that made her eyes sting. Then we fight together. As the sun broke through the clouds outside the window, casting golden light over their intertwined hands, Hayden leaned her head on his shoulder. Isaiah Nolan had once built his world out of walls and distance. But somewhere between a spilled coffee and an unexpected connection, he'd found something stronger than steel, her. And this time, he wasn't letting go. The villa in Provence sat tucked between rows of lavender fields, golden sunlight pouring through the arched windows as the scent of wild thyme drifted in from the garden. Hayden stood barefoot on the terrace, a silk robe wrapped around her, her hair still damp from the morning rain that had passed while she slept. Isaiah leaned against the doorway, watching her as she tipped her face to the sun. You always this quiet after sleeping in a castle? She smiled without turning. It's not a castle, it's a vineyard with better furniture. Semantics, he said, stepping out to join her. I bought it for you. Her head turned sharply. You what? This place. I had the papers drawn up yesterday. Isaiah, I know what you're going to say, he interrupted. That I don't need to buy things to prove how I feel. You've made that very clear, but this isn't about proving, it's about building. She stared at him, eyes narrowing slightly. You mean it? I do. I've spent years acquiring things that meant nothing. This is the first time I've wanted to create something permanent, for us. She rested her hand on the stone railing, quiet for a moment as the wind lifted the edge of her robe. I've never had a place that felt like mine. Then let this be the first. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a silver key, placing it on the palm of her hand. You don't have to decide anything today. But it's yours whenever you want it to be. She looked down at the key, then back at him. Are you always like this once you fall for someone? He gave a small shrug. I wouldn't know. You're the only one it's ever happened with. Later that afternoon, they wandered through the nearby village, hand in hand like any other couple. No photographers, no boardrooms, just market stalls and the sound of old men arguing over chess under sun-bleached awnings. Hayden stopped to admire a worn leather-bound journal at a bookseller's stall, her fingers brushing over the gold-leafed spine. You should get it, Isaiah said. I don't even know what I'd write. Thoughts, dreams, the things you keep to yourself. She looked up at him. And what about you? What do you keep to yourself? He hesitated, then picked up the journal and placed it in her hands. Regret, mostly, but less of it now. They walked in silence for a while, then sat on a bench overlooking a vineyard. Hayden turned to him, her voice softer than usual. My old life, it wasn't bad. But it was small and safe. I thought that was enough. His hand found hers. It was enough before, but it doesn't have to be the end of your story. I used to think love was supposed to be complicated. That if it wasn't hard, it wasn't real. And now I think love is supposed to make you brave. Isaiah leaned in, pressing his lips to her forehead. Then let's be brave together. The next morning, they returned to New York. Isaiah had meetings, and Hayden had a presentation with a new client, her biggest yet. But everything felt different, not because of the ring on her finger or the new title she hadn't even had time to tell her boss about, because for the first time she wasn't walking into the city alone. He waited for her outside her office that evening, leaning against his car in a charcoal coat, holding a small bouquet of white peonies. When she stepped out, heels clicking against the pavement, she raised a brow. I told you not to send flowers to my office. These aren't for your office. They're for the rooftop, she blinked. You brought flowers to the building. I rented the rooftop for the hour. He opened the car door. Come on, you'll want to see this. The elevator doors opened to candlelight. Thick glass lanterns lined the edges of the rooftop, and a string quartet played quietly in the far corner. In the center, a table for two sat under a canopy of soft gold fabric, the skyline glittering around them. Hayden stared, stunned. You did all this in a day. I had help, he said. And a very persuasive assistant. She turned to him. Why? Isaiah brushed a lock of hair from her face. Because I want to remind you, every day, that you're the reason I stopped building walls and started building a future. They dined under the stars, laughing more than they talked, sipping wine and sharing stories neither had told anyone else. When the music slowed, Isaiah stood and extended a hand. Dance with me. There's no one else here. Exactly. She took his hand and he pulled her close, one arm around her waist, the world falling away. As they swayed beneath the city lights, Hayden whispered, I used to think love was the thing that happened after everything else, after success, after stability, after proving yourself. And now I know it's the thing that makes the rest of it worth it. He kissed her slowly, deeply, like he was anchoring himself to her, and when they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I'll never stop choosing you. You better not, she said, smiling, because I'm all in. 6 months later, the villa in Provence bloomed with white roses and soft laughter. Friends and family gathered under the olive trees, string lights casting a golden glow on linen tablecloths and champagne flutes. Hayden walked down the garden path barefoot, her dress a soft whisper of silk, her arms wrapped in a bouquet of wildflowers picked from the very fields that surrounded them. Isaiah waited at the altar beneath a canopy of wisteria, his eyes never leaving hers. They said their vows quietly, without theatrics, promises of truth, of presence, of choosing each other again and again, and when the sun set behind the hills and the first stars appeared, they danced barefoot in the dewy grass, the music soft and the world exactly as it should be. Later that night, wrapped in each other beneath the open sky, Isaiah kissed her temple and whispered, I don't need empires, I just need you. Hayden smiled, her fingers laced through his. Then you already have everything, and he did.